I decided to check around a few different communities asking the golden question: why have games gotten more expensive? If you've noticed, for maybe the past decade or so, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, games have been about $60. Keep in mind, this is just AAA games in general. I'm sure there's probably some outliers, but recently, as in the past 4 or 5 years, the price of games has went up to 70. Why is that? The majority of answers range from inflation to, oh, well, maybe publishers think they can get away with it, and the reality is they probably can, and still reasons go on. Because games take so many people to make, so many teams, so much development time, this and that, this and that. Games cost money, therefore, well, you get the idea. And then about a good few of the answers I've been seeing from the early thousands to the late 80s, where games in the 80s would cost 50, in the thousands they would cost 60, and now they're going up to 70. Well, a lot of people are saying that, well, with inflation, they would actually be almost double their price, being $110, maybe 100, maybe 120. So we should actually be grateful for the slow uptick, the gradual increase as it is. And yet still other people are saying that, well, Take-Two was one of the first major publishers to do it, and they know people are going to buy their games, right? You hear about a game from Take-Two, you're probably going to buy it, right? And then there's Sony, you're probably going to buy a Sony game, regardless of if it's 5, 10, maybe 15 or $20 more, you're probably going to buy it, right? I mean, really, a boycott's not really going to go that far. So it starts snowballing and snowballing, and other companies see that, and they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't we do this? And you know what? I'll give you a slightly controversial point. With the state some games are releasing in today, is it really worth paying full price for them? Back in the day, games were expected to release and be stable because a lot of them wouldn't receive updates, or there wouldn't be like that pipeline of months down the line where you'd say, oh, there's this patch, or we're waiting on. A lot of games wouldn't have that, so they would have to ship, and if they had a few bugs, that's fine. If they were playable, that was the point, right? You could play and complete the game. So, in my opinion, I feel like a few game developers are definitely getting a little bit more lax, and I mean, that's to be expected. I mean, people are pretty forgiving, but if you wait, weeks and weeks, days and days, months down the line, and you're like, oh, well, maybe this time they'll patch it out. They should have patched it out and released, you know what I mean? This one comment actually got downvoted a little bit, but he does raise a good point about physical versus digital. Now, I really don't know anyone who buys digital personally. I know people do, but I don't know anyone personally who does so. So you could understand that accounts for a lot of the like there's marketing and everything. Like there's a bunch of costs associated with making games, right? It's not just making the game. There's so much shit that goes into it. It's unbelievable. But with games shifting from a physical to a digital world, you're not buying the game. You're buying a license to play the game, which can be revoked at any time. That's the world we're living in, right? I mean, there you go, right there. That's another factor. That's another thing people have to look out for. So I'm gonna say it's not really totally fair. Okay, you might be able to justify it. Is it completely fair? No, it's not. If we were still shipping, physical cases, physical CDs, DVDs, like actual, like physical merchandise, I'd be able to understand it more and actually be able to get behind it. And I'm not saying that they don't do that anymore. I'm just saying that the ratio, like the rate at which they do it, it's definitely dropped, okay? Nobody, who's going to buy shit physically apart from collectors? I mean, come on, dude. And to continue on this little tangent, there's so many more things that you buy in games, okay, now that we've shifted more to an online world. So it's not just you buy it, you play it at release, right? There's now microtransactions, there's DLCs, there's battle passes, there's subscriptions, like so many fucking things. Somebody wants you to download their launcher, you end up having 5 or 6 different fucking game launchers on your PC because they don't want to be on Steam for some reason. You know, downloading their piece of shit software is the only way to play their game. Anyway, with the whole DLCs battle pass thing, I feel like it's pretty comparable to printers, like how major printing companies will sell the printers at a loss, and then charge like fuck on the ink so that they make it back on the ink. I imagine it's a little bit like that, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to unjustly compare the two like that, but it just like it came to mind, you know. And to swing back to the whole game production thing, GPUs, the cost of GPUs nowadays, dude. You want to pick up a 5000 series GPU? Good fucking luck. And for companies to do that on a mass scale, I mean, like it's every release with this shit, dude. It's not even the GPUs, man. It's the fucking consoles too. You know, you couldn't get a PS5 or a fucking Xbox for at least what, like 2 years. It was insane. This user actually talks about the minimum wage not changing for, 15 fucking years, right? You know, the number's going up every year. Anyway, he's saying that purchasing power is going down for the individual because, well, inflation isn't an umbrella. Well, I mean, I guess it is, but in this instance, we're talking about wages and how minimum wage hasn't gone up. The main point is, if goods get more expensive while wages stay the same, well, your dollars are a little bit less, right? I'm well aware that on a real level, a lot of businesses still don't use pay by minimum wage, but yeah, I still hear about it. Like I still notice, and like it still happens. There's a few places around me that still do it. You know what I mean? I get that for the most part, you can attribute it to unskilled or entry level labor, but it's still the fact of the matter, right? The principle of the matter. Minimum wage has not changed, and while it has not changed in 15 years, the prices of things have changed. So it's a fun little adjustment. But really, at the end of the day, how much of it could you say is greed? How much of it could you say is just mega corporations saying, hey, you know what? We're just going to say it. Fuck you. And we're going to say it as loudly as possible to as many people as possible. And we're not going to care. Because you know what? At the end of the day, people buy our products. And that's what matters. Like I said before, boycotts never really catch on. Nothing ever really gets anywhere. And I guess to hammer the point in, nothing ever happens. I don't want to continue about this shit all night, so I'm just gonna call it. But I mean, I feel like I mentioned a fair, major few points here. I'm not gonna say anything for or against here. I'm just laying it out for you. But hey, if you feel like I didn't touch upon anything, or you feel like I'm glazing a bit too hard, feel free to let me fucking know.